Okay. Well, welcome to those of you who are here. Welcome to the relationship series. We are in season number 5, and I am super excited that we are here. And this is our book season. So we are reviewing books this season. Again, it's always great to be here on a Thursday and to share, to chat, to do this kind of relationship work, this intentional relationship work. So always good to have you guys here. Um, I like to highlight what we do here and remind us of sort of our mandate and our vision. So here we have transformational conversations that help us to revolutionize our relationships. And we are very, very, um, let's say, hmm, what are we? We're keen. We're keen to do the work to heal for real and to sow what we want to grow. And so the idea here is that we can have better relationships if we pay more attention to our relationships and if we intentionally work on our relationships. I'm going to turn up this volume here. So that's what we do here. We get to talk about that amongst ourselves. I am Genevieve. I am your friendly neighborhood sister girl with the sister locks, and we get to have conversations here together. Um, and I like to say I'm not an expert, but I am a passionate person. So I am passionate about relationships, passionate about talking about relationships, passionate about how we do relationships, and I learned about my passion way, way, way back in my teenage years. I was thinking about how to do relationships better. A lot of relationships in my life were just not going well. And so I started thinking about meditating on, reflecting on how we could do relationships better. Today, I am a coach and a traveler and a therapist and all those kinds of things. But first and foremost, I am a passionate person about relationships, about the topic of relationships. So our vision here is to share with people how to pursue connection over currency. So quality relationships over money or material things as the main source of value and fulfillment and joy in our lives. So we know everything matters, but for us here, relationships matter the most. I say it all the time. We are created for relationships. And so it's important for us to learn how to do relationships well. So we're in episode 4. Last week, we started reviewing John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And I'm a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. So I'm reviewing some of my favorite John Maxwell material and applying it to our topic of conversation, which is always doing relationships better or having revolutionary relationships. So this week, we are going to continue with Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, because we didn't get through all of it last week. And I wanted to make sure you guys got all the principles and all the practices when it comes to connecting with other people, making and creating and building powerful connections with others. So we talked last week about the first 2 principles of connecting and how important it is to connect with other people. And so we're looking at connecting based on our level of influence, based on focusing on others, and we'll go through the next 3 principles as well as the 5 practices today. So how we're going to do this connecting thing. Last week we had a lot of conversation in the chat, a lot of thoughts and ideas. So thank you guys so much for that. Again, I invite you to turn your mics on, to join the conversation, throw a message in the chat. I'm interruptible. I say it every week. This is not about me sharing all the information that I've learned and thought about and whatever. It is about me presenting something, of course, that's of value to you. But I want to hear from you because our best thinking is done in collaboration with others and in community with others. So I invite you guys to throw your messages in the chat. I will always get to them and read them, or turn on your mic or put up your hand or whatever it is you guys want to do. Depending on where you guys are right now, doing lunch or in a, meeting or at work, at your desk or what have you. So I'm interruptible. Join the conversation and we'll talk this thing out. All right. Our agenda today, like I said, we're going to go through principles 3 through 5, and then we are going to look at practices number 1 through 5 on on creating powerful connections. And then at the end, I always say we're going to have question and answer, but we can do that in between and throughout. It doesn't have to be at the end at all. Hopefully you guys are thinking about the self-awareness questions that we do ask, and we'll have more today. And that just gives us an opportunity to locate ourselves and to bring ourselves into sort of intentional thought and conscious awareness of where we are at, where this topic is concerned, sort of judging how we're doing. All right, so let's jump in. Let's jump in to principle number 3. So we did principle number 1 and principle number 2. First one was influence, and the second one was others, so focusing on others. Principle number 3 of connecting is communication. So connecting goes beyond words, okay? And I come from a background where words are really important. So what we say matters, and what we say, we expect other people to listen to. And first and foremost, before looking at anything I do, you hear what I say and you follow what I say. So I don't know if anybody else has grown up in that kind of environment where your parents say, do what I say, not as I do, that kind of thing. So I come from a background where it's all about words, but I'm learning that connecting does actually go beyond words. And we'll look at these components of face-to-face conversation and sort of ground ourselves. And I don't know if you guys can let me know if this hits home for you, or if this is new for you. But in the last little while, this has been somewhat new for me. So 3 components of face-to-face communication or face-to-face conversation are words, tone of voice, and body language. So we, as human beings, are always communicating. We're always communicating something. We're always saying something to the outside world from our internal world, whether that is how loud our voice is, how angry our tone of voice is, or how extra our body language is, how our facial expressions are set, whatever have you. And so when we look at how to be intentional about what we're communicating, we look at these main areas. What are the words we're saying? Yes. But how are we saying those words? What is the tone of voice that we're using to convey those words, to share those words? Because that matters. If I say, oh, I hate you, or oh, I hate you, like, based on, of course, our environment and, our relationship, what I mean, right? But the words don't matter as much as the tone and the body language that's attached to those words. And so when we look at how others believe what we say when we communicate, we have to look at the percentage. And so here we have a little pie graph, okay? So what we say when it comes to communicating with others is about 7% of what they gather. It's like, it means, that's less than 10%. 7% of what we say has to do with the words we say. And then 38% actually has to do with the way we say it. So when it comes to people understanding us, interpreting us, and so on, what we say is the least. The words that we say is the least. So 7% of what we say, 38% is how we say it. So if I say something to you like, I'm really, passionate about relationships, you'll hear what I say, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I think Genevieve's kind of passionate about relationships. But the way I said it doesn't really convey passion. You know what I mean? It kind of conveys a little bit of boredom, maybe some unsurety or uncertainty. It's kind of like, is she though? Like, I'm not convinced, right? Like, I'm getting a message, but I'm not convinced of the message. So the words are important. How we say it is important. And then 55% is what others absorb. So this is really important, because when it comes to what others absorb, we don't have control over that. We, as communicators and individuals who are looking to connect, we don't have control over how people absorb or filter what we say, because that's through their personal experiences and their personal lens. And so if I'm like in a bad mood, I might be prone to interpret some of your words kind of negatively. I might filter them through some of my negative self-talk, some of my bad mood and so on. And I might not capture the essence of what you're trying to convey because I'm kind of moody that day. And that's the truth. There are some people who can joke with me on a day when I'm good, and those same jokes will not translate or land the same way on a day when I am not good. And I have days when I'm not good, right? So, and I think we all have those days where we recognize that our moods are kind of off or maybe lower on the energy scale. We're kind of broody, we're kind of irritated or irritable or what have you. And there maybe a plethora of other things going on or other conversations in our head or other things that we're thinking about. But to know ourselves is important, and also to recognize that other people are the same as we are, meaning that they have stuff going on, they have things that they need to be doing and thinking about, and they are filtering our messaging through their stuff. So it has to pass through a whole bunch of channels in order for it to get to their place of understanding. And yes, there are ways that we can tailor our messaging to get the best response, right? So we are likely to get the best response possible if we tailor our messaging, our body language, our tones of voice, as well as our words in a particular way. For those of you who have kids, this might be a thing for you. If you say something harshly to your child might bristle a little bit, versus if you say it gently. And you can say the exact same words, but if you say it with a gentler tone, it gets received better, right? So you guys can tell me your stories in the chat. I don't know if that hits home for you, but I know that for sure this hits home for me, especially when it comes to communicating with friends, family, strangers, and others. So 90% of the impression that we often convey has nothing to do with what we actually say. That's a whole big chunk of percent. Okay, that's a big chunk of the pie. So it would be in our best interest to focus on some of those non-verbal ways that we communicate. And those non-verbal ways, those non-logical, non-cognitive ways are emotional ways. They hit emotional places on the inside of other people. And listen, marketing people, advertising people, people that create all these apps and whatnot, they have this down packed. They understand the human brain and the human, emotions and all that kind of stuff. And they appeal to that on the inside of us. I mean, nobody has to have, the newest car on the block, but we feel like, oh my goodness, if we have that, our lives are going to be so much better, because that's what's conveyed in the messaging, that's what's conveyed in the advertisement, that's what's conveyed in what we see on the commercial, right? So these kinds of sort of nuanced ways of communicating, they appeal to the majority of how we are and how we communicate as human beings and how we connect as human beings, which is on an emotional level. Okay, so wanting to sort of break that down just a little bit. So I'm sure you guys have all seen these ambiguous figure illusions, maybe if you've taken Psychology 101. So tell me what you see. Tell me what you see on the left and or tell me what you see in these images, in these pictures, real quick. If you guys want to turn on your mic or type it in the chat. Or what do you see first? Maybe that's a better question. What did you see first?
The left one, I saw the vase first.
You saw the vase first. Yes. Okay. Do you see anything else now?
Two faces.
Yes. Okay. So you saw the vase first. And then what about on the right? The side?
Silhouette of a woman's face, and then the guy playing the sax.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So you saw the silhouette first? The silhouette of the face first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I've always found these interesting, and you guys can throw out your own answers if you want. But this always fascinated me because it's the same picture. Like, we're looking at the same thing, but it's viewed differently by different people. Some people actually can't see both. Some people can only see one. And even when you're like, no, don't you see this sort of outline? They're like, I can't, like my visual, whatever. It doesn't capture, the other image. But what I think is really interesting is if the picture is the same, then the difference has to be with the individual, like the individual eyes that are seeing and observing the picture, right? And I think what this boils down to, or comes back down to, is our conditioning as human beings. So we've all had different experiences in life, we've gone through different things, and that has influenced what we think about first, what we see first, what we hear first, when other people are communicating with us, or when we're observing and experiencing external stimulus, right? So when we are conditioned to believe certain things, think certain ways, or when certain behaviors or types of approaches are modeled for us, then that's usually what we learn, and that becomes our common response and what we lean into. And so this has a lot to do with like filtering informations, what conclusions we lean to, and those conclusions can hinder or can help our connections. So I do a lot of work with couples, and I love this kind of work because it has to do with the narratives we create on the inside and the conclusions that we make. And so a lot of times we'll connect behavior, either capacity or willingness or what have you. We'll connect that to our sense of self, our identity. Like, oh, he doesn't, you know, I don't know, make the bed in the morning. So that means that he doesn't care about me because I've asked him to make the bed, you know, in the morning a number of times. So that just demonstrates that he just doesn't care about me. And he doesn't care about what I say. And so we think the worst sometimes of others, and others of us think the best. And so that same scenario could happen in another household with another couple, and they could be like, oh man, he's just so absent-minded sometimes. He's just in a rush in the morning and he just doesn't, you know, make the bed. And I just have to come back around and be like, honey, can you make the bed? Or maybe I'll just make it myself, you know. But the way that we assess and interpret is really based on our internal mechanisms, like what we believe, the narratives we create, how we see things, what we see first, right? And so part of this whole, you know, communication thing is almost rewiring what we are hardwired to believe if it's not in alignment with what we want. And so if we're sort of skewed, or we tend to think the worst or come up with the worst case scenarios or the, you know, negative conclusions and so on, but we want something different to happen. So we want to have sort of a more positive disposition. We want to see people in a different light. We want to connect with them more intentionally. Then we have to hijack our brains. We have to hijack our natural, normal, automatic ways of thinking. And so this is getting a little bit technical. I don't love, you know, the technical sort of clinical aspect of things, but I do want us to get it. Okay. So this is conditioning 101, very basic. Okay. Don't come for me if you're a therapist on the line. Okay. This is very basic. So conditioning happens on 3 basic levels in 3 basic areas. Okay. So this is a basic CBT triangle. We call it a cognitive behavioral therapy triangle. Okay, so think of it like, you know, 3 points. So when we are congruent, or when we are aligned in our thoughts, in our feelings, and in our behaviors, or our thoughts, our actions, or emotions, then people can feel that, and connecting goes well, let's say. Okay, so this is the idea that connecting and communicating goes beyond what we say. Okay, so when all these areas are congruent or aligned. What's another word for congruent? You guys give me a word for that. When everything is, I'll just use the word congruent because I can't think of another word right now. But when all these areas match, that's a good one. When all these areas match, then we can connect with people in an authentic and sort of vulnerable, open, and real way. And when they don't, people can sense that, people can feel it, and you'll find yourself saying things like, oh, this person's kind of disingenuous. I don't really get real from them. I don't really get authentic from them. There's something sort of off about them. And we'll start, you know, sort of, we'll be doing the side eye kind of thing, like, I don't know. I'm not 100% here, when things are kind of off. So just like I gave you the example, like, oh, I'm so passionate about, you know, relationships. Y'all would be like, I hear what you're saying, Genevieve, but it doesn't come off as 100% genuine. It doesn't come off, as 100% believable. And the other day, it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine, and they said something, and I was like, yeah, amen. And they were like, yeah, that amen didn't sound, that amen didn't really sound, like true, authentic, real. Like it could have been a little bit more convincing, And I thought, yeah, it's true. And on some level, we are similarly expectant of a certain kind of energy behind what we say when we are trying to convey specific things, right? So if there's sadness, we're expecting sort of, broody energy. If there's anger, we're expecting sort of like fiery energy. If there's joy and happiness and passion, we're expecting like, explosive energy. So, we want to be able to match these three areas when we're communicating with others, and we're looking for a match in these areas when other people are communicating with us. And so we're like, is the thoughts, is the, whatever she's thinking, whatever she's saying, whatever she's doing, whatever she's feeling, are all those things matched together, right? And so we'll talk a little bit just here about how we match these things, okay? So when there's incongruence and disconnect, I guess, between these three areas, we can see communication breakdowns, okay? So these are just some tips for us to look at how our communication and how our connections can be negatively affected when there's breakdown. So in our thoughts, if we are dispassionate, our thoughts would be like, I know what I'm saying, but I don't feel what I'm saying, right? And so that can be a communication breakdown because people are like, I'm not getting what you're saying. I'm not getting the full essence of what you're saying. And so there's a number of examples here, which I think are fantastic, right? When we look at what happens when we can't, or when we find it difficult to connect with people, or when other people find it difficult to connect with us, we can attribute it back to, or connect it back to some of these areas of breakdown, right? So unfounded, sorry, we have theoretical, I know this, so I know something, but I don't do this. So that's the theory. It's like, if you know better, do better, these kinds of sayings that come up, or do as I say, not as I do. These kinds of comments, or these kinds of instructions, these sayings that come up, we kind of know that they don't sit well with us. And then we use words like hypocritical, like you're hypocritical because you don't do something that you feel, or that you tell me to do, or that you know to do, right? So you should be doing it, but you're not doing it. It's like we can't connect with that well. And other people can't connect with us well when we're walking in that incongruence, right? And so these are some of the reasons why it's really difficult at times, because we're asking these kinds of questions like, how come I can't connect with other people? How come my message is not getting conveyed? And it's because there's some kind of breakdown. And it's hard sometimes to take a good look at ourselves. Michael Jackson says it best, take a look in the mirror, right? But it's hard sometimes to do that and to admit to ourselves like, oh, maybe I'm not at 100% here. Maybe I'm not doing what I say I'm doing, So presumptuous is, I don't know this, but I do this. Mechanical is, I do not feel this, but I do this. So mechanical, we see that all the time. And sometimes we experience that ourselves. I know I have, when I feel obligated, or I have a duty to do something, but I don't really feel like doing it. People will feel that, people will get that, people will see that. And it's hard to connect with that, right? So I'm sure you've experienced it yourselves in your own relationships, in your own connections. Okay. So here's some ways to circumvent some of these things, or in our actions, something we do. Our actions are things we do, and we can connect visually. So our actions are what people see, right? So if I was talking about revolutionary relationships, and you guys got a glimpse into my life, and I was sharing with you that all my relationships are full of drama, and full of betrayal, and full of abuse, and maybe you guys one of you came to me and you said, hey, Genevieve, I have an issue that I'd like to discuss. And I was like, no, I don't want to discuss anything with you. I'm not talking about it, and like, you guys would be like, what's this girl talking about? Revolutionary relationship. She ain't like, I mean, visually speaking, she's not doing what she says we should do or what's good to do or what she's passionate about doing. You guys would be asking these kinds of questions because, again, there's no alignment. There's a mismatch between what's actually happening, what you're seeing, and what I'm saying, right? So visually speaking, in general, when we look at connection, actions look like doing what we want to be happening, right? So if we want to, say, connect with other people, or we want to be approachable, or we want to convey openness or warmth or whatever, we have to do things like fire the RBF. I know a lot of people are like, well, I have an RBF. And if you guys don't know what that means, you guys will go look it up. I have an RBF and my face is just set this way. And that's just what it is. Well, at the end of the day, if you want to connect, you have to fire the RBF and hire a smile, right? Give your face a break, right? So visually speaking, you have to look like what you want. If you want to connect with other people, look like you want to connect with other people. Don't look like you don't want to, because then you're not going to, and then you're going to wonder why you're not connecting with other people. Well, people don't want to connect with your RBF, right? People want to see a smile. People want to see warmth. People want to see welcoming. You want to see that. You want to see that in other people. Like, you don't approach people who look frustrated, angry, and upset, right? So why would we expect, well, people know my heart. No, they need to see your heart, because they need to see it on your externals, right? Visually speaking, your face needs to match your heart. So if you genuinely want to connect with other people and demonstrate care and love and all that good stuff, well, then show it on your face, right? So take Dale Carnegie's advice. One of his first points of advice in I think there's a how to win friends and influence people, how to win friends and smile, just smile. That's it, right? It's the first basic thing that we can do. So visually speaking, present connection, present what you want. And if you don't want that, of course, then frown all day long, right? And keep people away, because that's what you want. So visually speaking, doing the facial expression thing, doing the body language thing, so moving with a sense of confidence and of purpose, and you have to get a sense of purpose first. If it is that your purpose or your desire is to connect with other people, then the things that matter are your body language being like open, being somewhat fluid, somewhat neutral, so not aggressive or angry or combative or what have you. Looking people in the eyes, right? Giving people a sense of like safety, that kind of thing. Those are visual cues that you want to communicate, you want to connect with other people, right? Open posture is a really big one. I was walking yesterday. I went for a walk yesterday, the day before, and I saw someone I hadn't seen in a while, and she was walking her dog, and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? And I walked away and I thought, that's interesting. Like, as soon as I saw her, I kind of did I put my hands down, I did the open like posture thing. It was automatic. And I only noticed after, when I was walking away, I was like, oh, good job, Jen, pat on the back, gave myself a celebratory pat, because I was like, I actually wanted to connect with this person. We had talked about going hiking and whatever. Sorry. So those are visual cues that you want to connect with other people and that people see. And that is part of communication, okay? When it comes to thinking or our thoughts are things that we know. So connecting intellectually, right? What people understand. And this is part of connection as well. And connection thought looks like sharing sometimes what we know. So sharing knowledge, but not too much. And so it's not like a forum like this. I wouldn't be sitting in a conversation, at Starbucks talking about any of this, like with PowerPoint slides. Why would we do that? That's not a thing. But sharing things that we have found out, things that are interesting, things that connect to our passions or, our work, or even to the other person, those are things that people connect with you on. Right. And so those thoughts and those ideas are valid for communicating and for connecting with other people. But again, not too much, right? Because we're trying to connect. We're not teaching, and we're not in a forum like this that's intentional learning about communication, connection, and relationships. Okay. Emotion is something we feel. So connecting emotionally and what people feel from us. And this, I mean, I think this is intuitive for us. Like we are so good. Our intuition is so on point. Sometimes, you know, if we check in on the inside, we're like, what is that anxiety I feel? What is that uneasiness I feel? What is that unsettled feeling that I'm getting right now? And it's when our attitude and speech patterns sort of lean into more like positivity or more authenticity or those kinds of things, we gravitate, we lean in, we feel more connected to other people, and vice versa. They feel more connected to us. But when things are kind of off, or when we hear, you know, sort of like insults or judginess or like complaining, things like that, we tend to recoil. We tend to do that. And again, it has to do with our desire, how much, where we're at and how much we desire to connect with other people. But it would be in our best interest to leave like the complaining, judgy, insult, like get on my soapbox and tell, you know, tell about all the things I hate about the politics and society. You know? Like it would be in our best interest to save that stuff for your therapy session and not bring that into a space where you're looking to connect deeply with other people, right? So if this is your intention, if it's your desire, then we have to sort of do the work, okay? So action, thought, emotion, right? Basic areas that need to be in alignment and in congruence for us to connect well with ourselves first, of course, and with other people, and for other people to connect with us. Any questions or thoughts about that? Any examples of that? Share them. You can turn your mics on or throw it in the chat. Y'all are quiet today. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Principle number 4. Are we just on 4? Goodness. Principle number 4. Sorry, I'll be mindful of the time. Principle number 4 is connecting always requires energy. Connecting always requires energy. And y'all can tell me what areas you struggle with, but these are 4 unpardonable sins of a connector. And I know what I struggle with. So being unprepared, okay, being unprepared to connect, being uncommitted to connection, being uninteresting in your efforts to connect, and being uncomfortable with connection, right? So these are, sorry, these are 4 areas, and 3 of the 4 areas require a lot of effort and a lot of energy. So this is like preparation, planning. This is like doing work. I struggle personally with being interesting. Like I live a pretty chill life. And I don't really find the things that happen to be extremely interesting. The things that happen to me in my life are to be very interesting. But I'm changing my way of thinking. My neighbor, one of my neighbors, and watching comedy as well, has taught me that anything actually can be interesting. It just matters how you share the thing and what sort of point you come up with, like for sharing the thing. I mean, I admire people who can just talk about anything and nothing at the same time. I remember watching an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, and he was talking about like the show. I mean, the show Seinfeld had so many seasons, it was like a hit. And he was like, basically, he wanted to take like everyday nothingness and turn it into like a show. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Like you can go to the soup shop or do your laundry or, you know, think about people with big hands, and it can become an entire like sitcom, you know, which is humorous and entertaining for people. And I was like, that's admirable to me, because in my mind, I'm like, why would you even talk about that? That's not important, right? To me, it's not interesting, but it can be interesting is the point. So I know I struggle with being interesting. I saw a message in the chat. I'll read it in a second. Let me see. Oh, Jojo, hey girl, how you doing? Demonstrate the attitudes and behaviors you expect from others. I like that. Yes. Sometimes people have a tendency to reciprocate the treatment received. Yes, without even realizing what they're doing. So being intentional can help that. And yes, sorry, yes, we do tend to reflect and mirror other people, and that is a natural process. And so to be intentional means that you're actually standing your ground in your values and your decisions in spite of what is happening around you. Right. And so this is the work that requires effort and energy to be prepared to go into a space. So regardless of what people are saying and doing and so on, you know how you're going to show up. And your standard of showing up is, again, in alignment, congruent. It matches with your thoughts, with your ideals, with your values, with your emotion, with your body language, and all that stuff. But again, that takes intentionality, pre-thought, preparation, all these commitment, all these pieces that they need to come together. And it is work. It's connecting is work, guys. Connecting is work, right? I love these pieces here at the bottom. Connecting requires initiative. So go first. I know a lot of great connectors who go first. They say hello first. They do the work of smiling first. They go first. They find, and we'll look at the practices in a moment, but they find opportunities, create opportunities, and maximize opportunities to connect with other people. And it's just genuine. I was on a trip, a mission trip in July, August, and one particular individual, we were at a coffee shop and strangers are kind of coming in. When one particular individual was like, "Hey, I see you over there, you're kind of just chilling. How are you? Who are you? Where are you from?" And I was like, whoa, like that's next level. That's like, I would never do that, just like randomly foreign country, just like open up conversation and just invite them into, and I was like, man, that's so admirable. And I love that, like that just intentional, next level, high level effort and energy to connect with other people. And it does take initiative, clarity, preparation, and some people, again, are just better at this than others. But if we are intentional and we think about it beforehand, I'm going to go into this conversation and I'm going to have a clear, calm tone. And regardless of how the other person is speaking to me, that's going to be my standard. So to prepare is also to connect with other people well. Patience, so slowing down can help with connection. Slowing down can help our thoughts connect or catch up with our emotions. So sometimes when we're running ahead, we're super excited, we don't think clearly or think through the decisions that we're making and the words that we're saying or the way that we are saying those words. And so if we slow down, take a step back, take a beat or a pause, then we can allow for that congruence to happen, right? Selflessness, so giving is a part of connecting, and then stamina, recharging. So knowing when you need a break, because connecting takes time, effort, energy, and that takes a toll on us as humans, right? And so that is a recipe for disaster if we just kind of keep going. And some of us are energized, I should say, by connecting with other people. Some of us are very energized by being with other people, and some of us are drained. I love people. I love being with people. However, peopling drains me. And so I know when I've reached my max, I'm like on zero, fuel tank empty, and I need to go and be quiet for a good number of hours or get some sleep or, just like sit literally by myself alone and in silence, so that I can recharge, right? So we have to also get to the point where we know ourselves, we're self-aware enough to know when we need to recharge. Because when we don't, what can happen is we can become irritable. And when we become irritable or when we become annoyed, when we feel some of those emotions coming up on the inside of us, some of us don't take the cue, the cue to go and recharge. Some of us are like, oh, it's other people, it's this environment, oh, it's this situation. And then we take it out on others and situations that aren't deserving of that kind of response. And so again, this is a lesson in learning as well, just to be more self-aware. So what do you guys struggle with? Being committed, interesting, prepared, comfortable? Let me know. Okay, Principle number 5, I hope we get through the practices today. Goodness. Okay, principle number 5, connecting is more skill than natural talent. That is the principle. Okay, connecting is a skill. So we looked at relationships, who you know, sacrifice, how you live, insight, what you know, success, what you have done, and ability, what you can do. All of those pieces, all of those things contribute to successfully connecting with other people. Okay, so I want to drive it home so that we have the theory before we get into looking at the how and the what. So the practical, right? So how we build this skill and then what we do to build this skill. So driving it home, connecting is more skill than natural talent. We can use all these areas plus more. We went through these 5, I think, in principle number 2. Right? These areas. So what you can do can help you connect with other people. What you have done can help you connect with other people. What you know can help you connect with other people. How you live can help you connect with other people. And who you know can help you connect with other people. So those are great areas to start with. It's foundational. And then we can look at some of these practices now. Okay. All right. Practice number 1 for connecting with other people. I think this is the most important, to be honest. Connectors connect on common ground. So find common ground. We're all different. We all see the world differently. We all have different values, different belief systems, different things that are important to us. We all have different passions, different expectations, different tolerances, all of those things. So find common ground. So there's something that you can connect with somebody on. And I was mentioning that I went on a trip to Zambia in the summertime, and I was communicating with the community via an interpreter. So I had a translator who stayed with me, and so I had to, it was extra effort to connect with other people. But one of the things that I did was I learned their language, or learned how to say hello, to do greetings and so on in their language, so that I could connect on their common ground. And I mean, I don't have the accent, I'm not from there or what have you, but it was rewarded because they were like, oh, she's trying, she's trying, oh, that's so sweet. She's trying to use our languages and so on. But it was an effort to create common ground on some level. Like, here we are, we're all human. There's difficulty in communicating, but we're going to try our best. I'm going to try my best, right? I don't speak the language or what have you, and I do have an interpreter, but I'm going to try my best to get onto your level, right? So connecting on common ground can be really, really important. And connectors understand this, right? They know that if they want to connect with other people on common ground, and if you find it difficult to connect with people on common ground, then you're probably in one of these areas. So these barriers to finding common ground are usually the culprit when it comes to some kind of disconnect. And so we might be operating in assumptions. Assumptions are usually like, like, I already know what you know. I already know what you want. I already know what you feel. I already know. And so we act out of that space, right? So I already know she doesn't care. I already know he doesn't want to do that. I already know that he feels this way, right? So sometimes if we act out of assumption, then we're not asking any questions because we think we already know, and that can create disconnect. That can be a barrier to finding common ground and then connecting with other people. Arrogance can be a barrier as well. I've struggled with this. Confession is good for the soul. I don't need to know what others know. That's like, I already know everything. I just know, right? And that's it doesn't even feel like a good place, even when I say it now. And I have functioned out of that place. But again, it was very strategic on my part, because I didn't know how to connect, and 2, connecting wasn't a value for me at that time. And so I could operate in that space and feel comfortable. I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter, because I didn't care. But now it would be very difficult for me to operate in arrogance, because I recognize that it's a barrier to creating common ground, and therefore to connecting with other people. And that's a desire of mine. And so I would more than likely, sort of run the other way and not, try to operate in arrogance. Control is another area. It's kind of like, I don't want to know what other people know. I want to just control my own knowledge base or what have you. And then indifference has to do with, I don't really care what others know or feel or want. Like, I'm indifferent to that. I'm not interested at all. And so any of these things can be barriers to create it, to finding common ground, because finding common ground is a search, right? It's a discovery, it's an exploration process. It's about curiosity. And so you have to lean in on some level in order to do that. These are really good. Thanks, Samuel. Yes, absolutely. So we know what not to do. Let's look at what we can do. These are some tips. They're not exhaustive in any way, shape, or form, but they can be a starting point for us to do this exploration process of finding common ground and connecting with other people. So availability, choosing to spend time with other people, right? Making time to spend time with other people, making yourself available, that can help you to find common ground. You spend time, you have conversations, you're like, oh, this person likes it. Oh, we like the same sporting team, or we, whatever the case is. So availability is a really great way to find common ground. Asking questions, goodness, this is like the gold. Okay, this is gold, platinum, and titanium. This is so valuable. Asking questions can be like, I don't even know, can open doors, like blow things out of the water. Just asking curiosity questions and interested questions to other people about their experience. And my goodness, I have been in conversations many a times, not in sessions, not where people are supposed to talk about themselves, but in conversation, out on the road or wherever, and I'll just listen, and people will just talk and talk and talk. I'm talking like 20, 30 minutes. Just never ask a question, never say, like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, just never. And I'm okay with that role, but I just find it interesting because I personally am very keen to ask other people questions because I have a desire to connect. And I realize more now, because I see it more now, how disconnection can happen or lack of connection can happen when we don't do that, when we don't actively pursue. So asking questions is really big. So be interested enough to ask other people questions. Listening, of course, listening is a way to common ground, listening to what other people say, and then, gravitating or grabbing hold of the things that connect with you. Thoughtfulness, right? Think about others. Think about others and look for ways to help them or to support them, or to encourage them, speak life into them. Things like that can help you find common ground. If other people are pursuing, like this kind of platform, or thinking about doing something that has to do with relationships, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like, how can I help them, support them, or encourage them in some way? Openness. So letting people into your life can be a way of finding common ground. And sometimes, we are guarded in a way because we've been hurt before. But then, of course, that's our own work. We have to do our own work to get over our own shame and like ourselves and accept ourselves, where we are at and for what we've been through. And then, of course, we'd be more inclined to let other people into our lives. Likability, people like people who like them. So just care about other people. That can be a way of finding common ground. Humility, thinking of yourself as less or as equally as important as others and not as more important as others, can help you to think of others more. And then, of course, adaptability, moving from like everything is about you and your way of understanding to almost giving yourself an invitation into somebody else's world, like to see things in from their vantage point, in their eyes, kind of thing. It's kind of similar to empathy, but really actually leaning in to like be interested in what it's like to live their kind of life, and to adapt to that, right? And that's actually really, really difficult to do. So anyways, that's principle number one, practice number one. Okay, well, we're gonna speed through these because I want to get you guys out of here on time, and we're not gonna do a third week of this because we're gonna jump into something different next week. So practice number two is simplicity. This is really hard for me. And I was sharing with someone the other day that as I practice my speaking, that one of the biggest challenges for me is filler words and paring things down to speak words that are necessary, as opposed to the, likes and the ums and the rights and the able tos and the in order tos and the reallys and the veries, all these filler words that there's so many extra words that complicate communication. So simplicity is practice number 2. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. And it is difficult work. 4 components to connect through communication: humor, heart, hope, and help, the 4 H's. Humor, obviously being funny. Heart is connecting to people's heart, or allowing people to connect to your heart, speaking from the heart, being honest, open, vulnerable, transparent, authentic, all that kind of stuff. Hope has to do with giving others hope and expressing your own hope. And then helping others, of course, anything that you can do to help other people, whether it's something like this, a platform like this, helping us to improve our relationships, that can be a component as well for connection. 3 S's: say it slowly, keep it simple, and have a smile. Those are difficult things to do all at once, but they are very, very important for helping us to connect with other people. And the art of simplicity, this is like gold. I love this. I don't do all this, but I love this. Art of simplicity. Number 1, talk to people, not above them. And so one of the principles that my mentor, John Maxwell, uses is, if an 8th grader can understand it, use it. If they can't, think about it. And so talking to people means talking to people on their level. Okay. So don't talk above them, because then it's hard to connect with that. Get to the point. So don't belabor the point. Tell people what you're trying to say. Right. Say it over and over and over again. That's number 3. Say it over and over and over again. This, I only like to talk once stuff. That doesn't work for us as humans, because our brains are not wired that way. We need repetition. Repetition creates more firing in the brain, creates more grooves in the brain, creates more learning, depth of understanding, depth of application, all that stuff in the brain. So we have to say things over and over again. Okay, well, I said it once. Well, once is not enough, sorry. Right? It's like treading across a lawn. If you tread across once, the grass probably won't be affected. But if you tread across 1,000 times, then eventually you're going to see a path through that grass. That's what we're trying to do in our brain. We need to create a path. Right? So there has to be a number of times that we tread across that lawn. So say it over and over and over again. Number 4 is say it clearly. And then, of course, number 5 is say less. And so sometimes, what's the word? Like the catchphrases are really good. So like meme culture can be really helpful, because you see something and it's like in a catchy way, so you can like repeat it over and over. And I by no means I'm very supportive of this like pop psychology, social media meme stuff, because most of it is inaccurate. But if you find something that is true and that can be helpful in your quest to connect better with other people, then hold on to it and use it. Okay. And thank you for all those, by the way, who offer me feedback as I'm growing. It's definitely priceless. And you guys can feel free to evaluate me in these areas and post a grade for me. Okay. Practice number 3. Woo, we got like a few minutes. Practice number 3 is create an experience everyone enjoys. So this is how to be interesting 101. Take responsibility for your listeners. Get over yourself, pretty much. It's about other people and not you. Number 2, communicate in their world. So Jesus did this best. Paul, the apostle, did this best. Is he an apostle? Anyway, did this really well. If you're talking to farmers, talk in farming terms. If you're talking to engineers, talk in engineering terms. If you're talking to, whoever you're talking to, communicate with their terms, on their terms in their world. And that means, again, you have to prepare, right? Okay, I think we're back. Are we back? Yes. Looks good. All right. Okay. So give me just a couple more minutes. I'm going to get through the last 3 practices, and then we will close for today. Okay. Practice number 3, creating an experience that everyone enjoys. Hold on. Sorry, I want to do this because I want to be able to see. Taking responsibility for your listeners, communicating in their world, capturing people's attention from the start. So practicing your introduction is really helpful for creating a good impression. And then also my speaking mentor, he says, put a 10 on their heads. So if you look at people or you judge people as a 10, right? So they can hear you, understand you, they're willing, they're open, then you communicate with them much differently than if you're sort of like apprehensive and nervous and you're thinking they don't like me and they're gonna judge me and so on and so forth. So capturing people's attention from the start is also capturing the essence of how and who they are and who and how you want to speak with them. Right. So you want to speak with them as equals, as people, you know, who are there to listen to you, who like you, who trust you, things like that, because you present differently when you're thinking of people like that. And then say it so it sticks. So things like what we would call Genevievisms would be helpful here. So things like you're creative for relationships, or, you know, we like connection over currency, things like that are really helpful for people to remember what you're saying. All right. And practice number 4. Let's look at this. I'm going to do this real quick. Okay. Somebody talk to me and let me know you guys are present. You guys are so quiet today. Are you guys still with us?
Yeah, we're still here. We're still here.
Thanks, Nige. I was like, where are we? Are we here? Okay. Practice number 4 and number 5. I'm gonna get you guys out of here in 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. All right, practice number 4, connectors inspire people. I'm learning this, and hopefully we've been doing a good job of this, but connectors inspire people, and this is the inspiration equation. So what people know plus what people see plus what people feel equals inspiration. What people know plus what people see plus what people feel equals inspiration. So this has to go back to our fancy CBT triangle, right? So what do people need to know? They need to know that we understand them, that we're focused on them, and that we have high expectations of them. What do people need to see? They need to see our conviction and our example, our passion, our excitement, what have you. And what do people need to feel? They need to feel our confidence, and they need to feel that we are grateful for them. Okay, that we are for them and that we are grateful for them. And all of that amounts to inspiration. And again, all of this intentional, requires preparation, effort, energy, and all that good stuff. But if we're desiring to connect with other people and create powerful connections, then we will do this work. And then the last one is practice number 5, credibility. Credibility is the currency that connectors have. So this is the credibility checklist. We can ask ourselves these kinds of questions, right? Currency is things that we buy things with. So what are we buying in exchange? We're buying influence, we're buying revolutionary relationships, we're buying deep connections, powerful connections, right? So this is the currency that we use, and this is how we get there, right? So we ask ourselves some of these questions. Again, these are self-awareness questions. Have I connected with myself, right? So this is your own personal work. Have I made right my wrongs? Right? So are there things hanging over our heads that we know we need to rectify so that we can connect well with other people? Am I accountable? Am I reliable? Can people trust me? Do I trust myself? Am I accountable to myself? Like, these are all great questions, because this creates more space for us to be congruent in our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Number 4, do I lead like I live? Are we hypocritical? Are we saying things that we aren't actually doing? You know, you should wake up every morning, you should eat well, you should do exercise, but you never do. You're eating bare fast food and never exercising, right? So do I lead like I live? Do I tell the truth? Woo! Yeah, ask the questions. Do I tell the truth? Right? Because people will get, you know, inconsistency and in disingenuousness if you aren't telling the truth. 6, am I vulnerable? Am I vulnerable? Am I open? Can I be vulnerable and can I be open? Is there shame work that I need to do? Do I need to come to a place where I can forgive myself, accept myself, and be acceptable of all the parts of my journey of myself and all that kind of stuff? Can I be vulnerable? Am I following the golden rule? Do unto others as I would like done unto me. Right? These are great questions for creating credibility. And do I deliver results? And so do I do what I say I'm doing or I'm going to do? Right? So again, we can look at all of these as credibility building, as a connection challenge, right? And so you guys can do that for yourselves. Ask yourself these questions, because these are all ways that we can build more powerful connections with each other. Okay. So we touched on the principles, we touched on the practices. You guys have it in your roster. I'm going to let you guys go. But again, we're going to be doing 4-week masterminds on all of these areas. So we'll go more in depth. These are based on books. So there's so much more packed into the books that we can't go through here in a 1-hour lunch and learn or our transformational conversations on a Thursday. So we are going to be studying this material more deeply. So send me an email or check with me on WhatsApp or what have you. Let me know if you guys want to go more in depth. We'll probably be doing this in conjunction with season number 6 of the relationship series, which starts in the new year. So if you guys are serious about communication and about growth and about creating powerful connections and changing lives, changing your work lives, changing everything about your life, you guys want to go more in depth, let me know and we will do this work together. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys next week on the relationship series. We're going to be talking about how to be a relationship success or a real success. We'll be going through another book and extracting some of the principles and applying them to our lives and to doing relationships better. Okay. Thank you guys again, and I will see you next week. Have a great one.